Storm Bertha, as we are still watching it as it turns west. The system set to impact southeast Louisiana today as tropical storm warnings extend along the Gulf. So here's the latest advisory that's coming in. So you are just reading it as we are coming in at the 5 a.m. advisory. There has not been a whole lot of change here with this. We still have wind sustained at 50 miles per hour, and it's moving off to the west at 5 miles per hour. Haley, this has been a slow mover, really fluctuating anywhere between about 3 and 5 miles per hour. And still at this point, as we look at the exact location where it is about 50 miles east-northeast of the mouth of the Mississippi River. So continuing to make it close to southeastern Louisiana as expected to move into that area as we go forward by the end of this evening and possibly even into tonight.
Yeah, right now still forecasting it to stay as a tropical storm, some gradual weakening beyond this point. So reaching that peak intensity yesterday. It's been battling a lot of wind shear, some drier air from both the south and the northern tier. So that has helped to keep the impacts fairly minimal with this complex of storms with Bertha at this point, Melanie. The one thing I will say, though, that's going to be probably the more impactful piece of this is some of the storm surge. That will be very much confined right to the coastal communities, and at high tide is when you'll see some of the worst. But a lot of times when you have a tropical system that is not as well defined or well structured, sometimes it can just dump a bunch of tropical rain. But in this case, it's keeping all that heavy moisture just off the coast, which is really minimizing this flash flood
Right,
threat.
exactly. It's been more of this tilted storm, and you look down to the south, that's where the heaviest rain remains, and that has been the forecast going forward, while we still have these pockets of moisture that are pinwheeling around. So rain really not going to be the main story. You mentioned the shear, the dry air that's working on in, so that's been pushing a lot of that farther down to the south. And as we look at what's working against it, it's going to be those things that you mentioned, but what could kind of work in its favor, especially if it goes overland and then back over the Gulf before it eventually makes it into Texas, is that potential for some of the warmer water.
It's that center of circulation, and it's hugging the southern coast of Louisiana that's going to help limit this. But even though you have that surface circulation dealing with water temperatures well into the 80s, that's enough to keep at least some level of sustainment to this. Likely going to be a tropical depression as it approaches the Texas coastline, dropping a good deal of rain. But the hopeful piece of this is that, especially since the northern tier of the circulation not as rainy, it's more so to the south. It'll keep Houston on the drier side, but it could dump even more rain to the south of Texas. Let's talk a little bit more about some of these impacts, what we've seen so far and what we have yet to see with the lifespan of Bertha. Now, thankfully, a lot of these impacts are going to be confined mainly to the coastal areas. And not a ton in the way of rain, but big waves. See those double red flags, rip current risk very high across many West Florida beaches, West Coast Florida beaches, the Florida Panhandle, many other spots along the southeast coast. That's going to be one of the sneakier threats we have to be mindful of. If you maybe aren't dealing with the direct impacts, let's say in the form of wind or rain, it's some of those more subtleties that can still be a real danger. But Melanie, we've been looking at that live radar, the winds blowing into land, and that's what is creating this abnormally high tide and creating at least the swells from the storm surge. Tropical storm warnings in effect. It does now include the New Orleans area out towards Grand Isle, Biloxi, Mississippi, Mobile, Alabama, and even including spots like Panama City. PCB actually had some of the higher totals worth of the storm surge over the last little bit, and they also were able to report a wind gust 57 miles per hour. So that's gusting, but the sustained winds for a tropical system, especially close to the center, need to be at least 40 to 45 miles per hour.
And there's the potential as we go forward that as this moves closer to Louisiana, there could be some of those gusts, especially along the coast, possibly pushing close to 60 miles per hour. That's certainly been indicated by some of the models. But here you're looking at some of those buoys. And again, the closer that you get to the coast right now, you're just seeing some gusts that are right near 30 miles per hour, a little bit above that. Of course, the closer you go to that center is where you're going to have some of the stronger intensity. But here's that wind forecast going forward, and you can see more of the arrival time of the winds as we get into the afternoon and then pushing through this evening. So it's going to arrive for portions of the Alabama, Mississippi coast, and then especially really tugging closer to Louisiana this evening and then continuing overnight.
You know, something that's really interesting that was noted in the National Weather Service discussion out of New Orleans, they have heat alerts in effect, coupled with a tropical storm warning. And they said that's something that they've never seen in their tenure as an NWS officer. And so that just goes to show that the impacts of this are fairly abnormal. But hopefully some of the gustier winds, some extra cloud cover within this storm could potentially reduce some of the temperature. So there are some positives to be taken away from this, but that moisture flux is going to get sent into Texas by the middle and latter part of this week. Here's just a quick look at some of the storm surge totals so far. Total water rise just shy of about 2.5 feet. We're projecting anywhere between 2 to as much as 4 feet worth of surge at the mouth of the Mississippi River.